Thanks, Lloyd, Amber, John, everybody involved with the STLREIA, one of my favorite places to be. Always delighted to be with our colleagues such as Roger Wallach, John Lee, and so on. It is absolutely fantastic to be with you here tonight. We want to keep this short, so if anybody's armed, you could just shoot me now and then we can go home. No? Okay. Chris, you were going to cut off those lights if it works for John's. Yeah, okay, we're not going to do that. So I'm Dale Sweet. I'm a member of the bar here in the state of Missouri. And that's going to continue until they dismember me or disbar me or something like that. I am an attorney. Roger Wallach's an attorney. We might be your attorney. Somebody might be your attorney. I may not be your attorney for what we're talking about here tonight. So this is general information. And the choice of a lawyer is always an important decision that should not be based on advertisements. Now, I don't think what Lloyd brought me up here to talk about is an advertisement. We're talking about stuff. And you can raise your hand. And if my lips are moving, that means I'm lying. All right. Okay. So what's a tax sale? A tax sale is not a real estate marketing strategy. It is a tax collection strategy. And that's an important thing to know because we all know that there's a limited amount of supply these days, right? That's all the postcards, all the text messages, all the this, all the that, right? And a tax sale is an attempt by the government to collect delinquent real estate taxes. It is not an attempt to sell you a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Pattonville. All right, so that's an important distinction to know. Buying property for back taxes is always risky. It's not as risky as you've heard, but it's certainly not without risk. And so connecting with an attorney such as Mr. Wallach, Mr. Walterbach out of Kansas City, a handful of other people here in town, or me if you feel like it. I mean, I wouldn't hire me, but some people do. I don't know what's wrong with them. Nobody in the government cares what predicament the tax sale bidder, purchaser who raises her hand at an auction or submits a bid might be getting. So this is completely different. You can't sue your realtor. You can't make a complaint to the MREC. You can't sue your seller on a disclosure, blah, blah, blah. They have absolutely no idea when they're selling you something at a tax auction by the government, whether there's even a building there, or what kind of building it is, or how many commodes are in there, et cetera, et cetera. Real estate taxes carry no personal liability. So while the government can sue me and garnish my wages or take away my Buick because I do not pay my business taxes, my income taxes, the government does not do that with real estate taxes. The legal fiction is that the earth pays the tax. And you have absolutely no idea how many properties here in St. Louis County, St. Louis City, or elsewhere in Missouri are owned by people who are deceased. It is absolutely true. And sometimes 15, 20 years go on before somebody figures out how to get great grandma's property out of her name. Are you a realtor, ma'am? Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about. And anyway, and real estate taxes in Missouri, unlike Illinois, where they're much higher, or due annually on New Year's Eve. And so on January 1 of each year, the taxes are delinquent. What do the taxes pay for? Museums, the St. Louis Zoo, schools such as Parkway, and naturally the St. Louis County and St. Louis City libraries, and many other things, including the Junior College District, Florissant Valley, Merrimack, Forest Park, these sort of joint districts, the St. Louis Metropolitan Sewer District to some extent, we'll talk about that later. Those are all things that the taxes pay for. Sheltered workshops, programs for the blind. I mean, there are a lot of public goods that come from taxes and things that we think are free, such as public education, are not really free. They're paid for by the car wash. they're paid for by Walmart, they're paid for by me, and they're paid for by you, and they're paid for by our landlords, if that makes sense. Moving on along, redemption is a funny word. Do we have any religious people in the audience? All right, what does redemption mean, sir? Bought back. So redemption in a religious sense. How about that? What does redemption mean? How about cleansed of sin? Yeah, I'm sorry, I was a little, we were talking about real estate and business and taxes, and here I spring some kind of Bible on you, right? Anyway, so anyway, redemption is a word that in the biblical context means to be cleansed of sin. And it's a word that we use in the tax sale or real estate arena to mean pay the taxes. Who pays the taxes? It doesn't matter. Somebody needs to. It could be a bidder at an auction, it could be a granddaughter, it could be a lien holder, it could be a mortgagee, et cetera, et cetera. If you know anybody whose property is about to be sold, they should contact the collector of revenue in whatever county it is straight away and see if they can redeem. Nicely done. You can have a pen from in the back there. I got some little promotional pens. Anyway, but remember, there's usually a right to redeem after the sale in most Missouri counties, except for the city of St. Louis and except for Jackson County. So speaking of 2024, we are here on August 20th. August 20th. And guess what? Tonight's a Tuesday, right? Guess what happens next Monday?
Tax sale.
A tax sale in every Missouri county with the possible exception of St. Louis City and Jackson County. So Lloyd and John and everybody at the REIA is absolutely right on point, looking at the calendar, getting this right, but we're short on time if you want to actually do something in St. Louis County, Jefferson County, Boone County, Taney County, as early as Monday, but we'll get to that. The city of St. Louis normally has 5 sales a year, and they happen in May, June, July, August, skip September, and then October. And those sales are all but done for this year, with one following in October, all right? Every other Missouri county except for Jackson, which we are not talking about here tonight because it's all the way over at Kansas City. And if we were going to Kansas City, wouldn't we rather go to Worlds of Fun? All right. You know, I mean, people like John are silly enough to come there to hear me speak or other people speak, but most people, you know, if you're gonna bloom where you're planted, you know what I mean? And so we might venture out to Franklin or Crawford or Warren or Iron, but we're generally gonna probably stick around St. Louis if we're St. Louisans. So let me hear from you now. So I can tailor the rest of our speech until I have a heart attack or somebody shoots me. And so are more people interested in hearing about the city of St. Louis, or more people here to hear about St. Louis County? So city? Okay, I got one person. So I'm gonna breeze through the city and stay mostly on the county. Naturally, like Baltimore and other places, St. Louis City is a completely separate political entity to St. Louis County, right? And it's been that way since 1876. Is that a good idea? That's a bad idea. People will be talking about it after we're dead. All right. So anyway, it is just that way. In the city of St. Louis, I'm going to hurry through this. But the slides are on my website. Okay?
I follow you.
Bless you. You're perfect in every way. Anyway, so in the city of St. Louis, we are now able to sue, we the people are able to sue against properties that are dilapidated and vacant at an earlier time frame. In fact, the tax collector is required to. There are no redemption contract or payment plans for non-homesteaders. So everything about a tax sale is a balance between collecting taxes on one hand and preserving Americans' property rights on the other hand. Property rights are a strong tradition in our country. Tax collection is necessary if you want a school district or a public library. Where do people go when they want to get a job and they don't have a computer at home and you need a computer in order to get a job anymore? The library. So how do we pay for that? You get the idea. So anyway, in the city, we now have to register 10 days before a sale. If you get on my email list, I will remind you 14 days before a sale when I send out the list. What's your name, ma'am? Courtney. So Courtney, you're on my email list. I email out geocoded maps and Excel sheets about 14 days before a tax sale in the city, right?
Yes.
All right, and you're on that email list because you are a adroit real estate investor, correct?
Yes.
And you signed up on the website, or you went on my little, clipboard back there, wrote down your email address, right? And I don't have anything to sell. This is absolutely free. I'm not sitting here with my hand out. I'm not trying to sell you a life insurance policy or anything else. And you can unsubscribe at any time. New in the city in 2023 and now in 2024 and beyond is that the opening bid amount, did you know this, Roger? The opening bid amount now includes everything. You know how you used to be able to pay $1 million on $1,000 opening bid and then end up owing another $2,500 or $1,200, $500, well, whatever. So that's fixed. And if you're about to lose your property in the city, there is actually a fund now that assists people who are eligible in paying their back taxes. And that is a good thing because they get to keep their property and we get to keep our schools. So anything that we're talking about involving a tax sale, whether it's the city, the county, Georgia, Delaware, Hawaii, involves the United States Constitution, and it has this thing called the Bill of Rights. And in the Bill of Rights, there's lots of different amendments. We've heard about the First Amendment, right? What's that? Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. You see what I mean? What is the Second Amendment? We know that. What's in the Fifth Amendment, however, is a bunch of different things. Specifically, plead the Fifth. So if I'm called to testify against myself in a criminal case, then I can plead the Fifth. Fifth Amendment also covers eminent domain. If they want to put Highway 70, Highway 170, 364, whoever, through my house, then I'm owed just compensation for that taking of real property, right? The other thing that's important that's in the Fifth and the 14th Amendments, the Fifth Amendment gives you the right as to the federal government. The 14th Amendment incorporates the earlier bills in the Bill of Rights as to the states. So the most important thing here for a tax sale thing is that no one can be deprived of a property right without due process of law. Now, what's a property right? It could be you hold the note. It could mean that you sold your property, it would only appraise for such and such, someone got a loan for such and such, you took back $6,500 or something like that. Can your property right be extinguished? Or if you're the property owner, can you maybe be made without a business location or be made homeless without due process of law? No, it says so right there in the Bill of Rights. So if you're about to lose your property, it's very important to look into a bunch of different stuff. So in the city, we're going to go real fast through this. It's a lawsuit. So for instance, if John Lee owed me $26,000, for instance, and he won't pay, could I sue John Lee? I don't see why not. And if I get a judgment against John Lee, can I order the sheriff of whoever county he lives in to sell his property out from under him? Yes, no? How come? No, he would be owed due process of law. Okay, so, and the 14th, the 5th and 14th apply to government deprivations of property. Okay, and now I'm his creditor in this example. In any event, so how we do it in the city is the collector of revenue sues the earth. It's legal fiction. It's collector of revenue versus the earth. Why? Because the earth pays the taxes. And then give certain notice in an in rem action. That's Latin for a lawsuit against a thing rather than a human, or an organization such as the Shriners, for instance, right? And the government handles due process. The right to redeem, which means pay the taxes and keep the property, we learned that, exists prior to the auction, not after the auction. You're going to see the difference here, 180 degrees night and day in just a minute. The government therefore has to handle due process because redemption occurs before the sale. What kinds of properties are sold? All of them. People sometimes call me and they say, these homes. Who said anything about any homes? Okay, we might be talking about a triangular parcel that's 6 by 6 out by the dumpster. We might be talking about part of an alley. We might be talking about common ground in a subdivision. We might be talking about a warehouse in Maryland Heights. We might be talking about a fraternal lodge. We might be talking about a church. We might be talking about a police tower. We could be talking about lots of things. A condominium, a billboard, an apartment. So no one said anything about any homes. So if everybody's thinking, I'm gonna get a 3-bedroom, 2-bath and a blah, 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 that's not how this works. It's a tax collection strategy, not a real estate marketing strategy. That's totally crystal clear to everybody, right? Okay, cool. So it's always very important to check the legal description. So I thought I had a really good county example, but I couldn't immediately find it. So when I slammed these slides together, I used a city example. The sheriff sold for several years in a row, 5980 R Astra Avenue. And everybody and their brother and their cousin and their banker and their wife and their last known girlfriend and everybody else drove by and banged on this poor lady's window and went like this and looked into her house. And guess what? Her taxes were fully paid. Okay, because the lady who owns this house does not know 5980 R Astra. So first lesson, don't believe house numbers and street names. Those are, can the government change a street name? Easton Avenue turn into Dr. King, you get the idea, right? So anyway, they absolutely can. We have a Charlie Dooley in St. Louis County since before there was Charlie Dooley, right? But now it's called something else. And so the actual thing that the sheriff was selling was a part of this private alley, not the house, okay? So figuring out what you're buying is super, super important. How are properties advertised in the city or elsewhere? Well, they're on my website. You can sign up for my email list. I got a little clipboard back there. I got some cards, blah, blah, blah. The sheriff in the city has a web page. The collector of revenue in most Missouri counties, but not all, has a web presence. They don't have to. St. Louis County certainly has a web page that shows everything, and you have to be very careful with the street addresses. That's an example of a geocoded map that I might send out in the city, right? And in the city, they use a weird numbering system. We don't have to talk about it because we don't have a whole lot of people who are interested in the city. I do have slides on my website, and I have a YouTube video on the subject. John's recording this, he'll point you to my website, blah, blah, blah. I appreciate it. But when you go to the city auction, they don't say 5980 R Astra. raise your hand. They say some weird code, which is going to be in October 230 and then something. If you decide to bid in the city, you need to sign up early. The same thing's true in the county. Get on it. And we're gonna skip the rest of that. When you win in the city, is it yours? No, no. You have to go through a court confirmation process and have the judge declare the property to be belonging to you. The same thing that would happen when John sues me over the $60,000 that I owe him. And he tries to get the sheriff to steal my property and sell it out from under me and sell it to Lloyd. And then Lloyd has to go in front of a judge and have that sale approved by somebody wearing a black robe. Does that make sense? Any questions so far? Because I'm gonna skip through the city. Okay, cool. Title issues are a big, big deal. John, I included the Tammy slide. So we'll get to that here in just a minute. I know you enjoyed that one when we did that in June. Anyway, so what kind of title do you have? Well, it depends on who's talking. So if I'm a 25-year-old man with a red sports car and a DWI, now I am all of those things. Just a joke. But and can I get car insurance? And the answer is sure. Is everybody gonna give it to me? Is it gonna cost more? Okay, but title insurance can't cost more because title insurance is regulated by the Division of Insurance in Jefferson City, and they have a specific fee schedule. And so if they perceive that there's risk, now, that insurance company who's insuring me with my DUI, and they're charging me money, do they think they might have a claim one day? My health insurer is Anthem. Do they think I might break my leg one day? Or get sick? Or something else? Why, sure. Title insurance doesn't look forward, it looks backward. Title insurance doesn't expect to ever have a claim. So if they perceive that there's a risk in insuring a transaction on an owner's policy or a lender's policy of title insurance, and they can't raise their premium, they simply don't do it, right? And we often have to pay attention to a title insurance company who is chosen by our buyer, or who is chosen by our buyer's lender, or who is chosen by our lender if we're choosing to refi for improvements or otherwise. Does all that make sense? Yeah. Cool. So there are pitfalls in buying property for back taxes. Among them, and we're going to get into it in a little bit more detail if we have time, is federal problems. HUD, SBA, the IRS, the DOJ, and so on. Sewer bills. Now, Lloyd, do you know what the three things that are to be expected in life are? Death and taxes, you said, Lloyd, right? But you're missing the third. It's a sewer bill. Okay, so there's three things that are absolutely certain in life: death, taxes, and a sewer bill. And they are real hard to get rid of, and we're going to get into that if we have times, or if we have time or we have questions about it. People ask me all the time about risk of loss. I just bought this thing. I got this piece of paper. The county sent me a letter. Maybe they're going to get me a deed next month. We don't know. What happens if it burns down? This is all part of the risk. Talk to your insurance person. I think they'll take your premium, but they'll probably deny your claim. You know what I mean? Anyway, so the Land Reutilization Authority is an agency in the city that takes title to property that nobody buys at the tax sale. And that's important because that's becoming an option for St. Louis County in the future. We'll get to that. Now we are going to move out of the city of St. Louis and into every other county in Missouri except for Jackson, which is Independence in Kansas City. With me so far? Any questions on the city before we move on? Okay, cool. So now we're on a new subject. It's a completely different process. And here in St. Louis County and in every other Missouri county other than the city of St. Louis, I mean the city of St. Louis, and Jackson County, that sale is held by statute always on the fourth Monday in August. Period, end of story. Doesn't make any difference whether you're in Wright County or Camden County or Taney County or anywhere else, it just is. And so if you want to get in on this auction, today's Tuesday, the auction is Monday. You need to register immediately. It's free. And that's if you want to bid in St. Louis County. Every single county across the state is going to have a slightly different procedure, a little different form. You have to know somebody's brother-in-law a little bit better, whatever it is, okay, in order to register for that sale. In St. Louis County, the registration form is on the county's website. You can fill it out. You can take it over there tomorrow with a notarized piece of paper that says you don't owe any taxes to the county, and here's a copy of my non-driver photo ID or my driver's license. That's all you need in order to get a bidder number, and you need the bidder number in order to bid, okay? So we're a little short on time here, folks, but that's how this process works, you know, meeting dates for the REIA and so on. So if anybody really wants to do this, they need to get on it. And then they need to compute their bids and drop them off. Why do they need to drop them off? Because it's not an actual auction. St. Louis County is the only jurisdiction in the state of Missouri that does not have an in-person auction. And the collector of revenue has said that we're never going back to an in-person auction. Now, I kind of think that the sealed bid business is illegal and probably a constitutional violation. However, they persist in this. It started out with COVID, then, oh, well, we're renovating that room, and you get the idea. And so a bid has to be bid on paper and accompanied by checks. That's bad for a lot of different reasons, because if I went to a farm auction and I want to buy Farmall tractor and it goes a little too high, I might buy the John Deere, right? But I can't do that if I have to put in a bid on both of them and then wait around 6 weeks for return mail. It's impossible to have an online auction in Missouri. Yes, the statutes have changed to explicitly allow it. St. Louis County does not do it. And there's a legal argument that even before the statutes were changed, that an online auction was possible. My personal preference, if you can't already tell, is a good old-fashioned in-person auction. That's what the law contemplates. And it's also true here, we're gonna get into what's a first, what's a second, what's a third, but the timing, because of this sealed bid auction BS, is difficult with a third, because the bidder is required to act within 45 days of winning the bid at the auction, no matter when she finds out when she won the auction. If it sounds like a setup, it is. So anyway, here's a few different things that have changed recently. There was in general, and in the past, history lesson, the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District would wipe out its sewer bills if you gave them a sheriff's deed in the city or a collector's deed in the county. Then, in September of 2021, a case came down from the Eastern District Court of Appeals, and it was not a St. Louis County case or even a case involving MSD. It was a Jefferson County case involving a different sewer district. And the Court of Appeals said sewer bills survive a tax sale, and they always have. All right, so the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District chose to take that as a mandate that meant that they can't wipe anything out. And so here we are today. There is a change, however, in section 249, 255 of the state statutes that takes effect on the 28th. Today's the 20th. And it changes the priority of a sewer bill. So we'll have to see going forward whether our sewer districts, plural, in Missouri respect that or think they have some sort of. One of the things that's true about foreclosure and about tax foreclosure is everybody thinks they have the highest priority. Deed of trust, highest priority. County taxes, highest priority. Sewer bill, highest priority. Okay, well, the concept here in foreclosure is this is selling for, somebody's gonna have to get a haircut. And the question is who, right? And so that's what we have to go through a lot of times in these analyses. Another change that's coming up is that a bidder at a Missouri county other than the city or Jackson County can elect to proceed on a post third as if it's a third. If we have time yet tonight before everybody goes to sleep, we can talk about that. Also, the legislation that takes effect on August 28th of this year, folks, allowed for some Missouri municipalities and some Missouri counties to engage in land banking, such as, but with different rules than St. Louis City's Land Reutilization Authority, and allows those counties to proceed with judicial foreclosure instead of administrative foreclosure, which is what we're going to be talking about when we're talking about counties. The other thing to talk about here is a case that came out a little while ago. It was from the United States District Court that said that federal liens must be judicially foreclosed, and they must be judicially foreclosed in a certain manner. And that means when Citibank is foreclosing on me because I died and didn't pay my mortgage, they can't necessarily wipe out a HUD lien against me, an IRS lien against me, an FHA insured mortgage perhaps against me without judicially foreclosing and following certain federal publications in giving notice. And so that's a really big deal because there's always a tension, and it's in the Constitution, it's the supremacy clause, right? It says that the federal government's laws are supreme. And so therefore, can the state of Delaware or the Commonwealth of Kentucky purport to foreclose a tax lien in favor of one of its counties and foreclose the federal government's interests? Show Me Premium Home says no. We'll talk about more of that if there are questions later on. Differences in the counties. In most counties in Missouri, we have an administrative system. What that means is that there's nobody wearing a black robe, holding a gavel in a courtroom, overseeing this process. It's completely different than when John Lee threw me the $60,000 that I owed him. Okay, it's just a clerk in a government office handing you a document across the counter. It is not the sheriff executing on property or garnishing up wages. Rather, it is an administrative system, and therefore it has to be backed up generally later by a quiet title lawsuit, because you always have to get somebody wearing a black robe involved if you're trying to take something away from somebody. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So this is an example of St. Louis County map from 2 years ago. So you see we have some out west, some down south, predominantly in the Castle Point and Glasgow Village areas of St. Louis County and other unincorporated areas in North St. Louis County. You guys are smiling. Do you know something about those areas? Yeah. Some people do and some people do successfully. He said he used to invest in the area, but his wife wouldn't let him anymore. Anyway, so in most Missouri counties, including St. Louis County, where we sit and stand tonight, it's an administrative system conducted under the Jones-Munger Act contained in Chapter 140 of the Missouri Revised Statutes. It's been around since the 30s. It's messy. It was written for a rural county and involves farmland. There's a lot of discussion about crops and who gets the corn or the cattle if the taxes aren't paid and redemption doesn't occur. Well, there isn't a lot of corn at Castle Point, right? Or Glasgow Village. So you're usually just buying a lien that has a variable right to redeem following the issuance of the lien. The taxes have to go unpaid, of course, for the government to sell my property. If I'm current on my taxes, ain't nobody selling nothing, right? If, however, I'm late on my taxes in Crawford County, Pat Schwent, she's the county collector in Crawford County. She will sell that lien on the fourth Monday in August after only 1 year of unpaid taxes. So if I own property in Crawford County, my taxes are due when? New Year's Eve at midnight, right? They're delinquent on January 1st. So Pat Schwent could march into her little office in Steelville on January 1 of 2025 and start the process. Now she'll probably wait until the 2nd, don't you think? That's a holiday or something. But anyway, she could start that. Now in St. Louis County, however, the government generally waits 3 years before starting the process. Michelle McBride, who's the county collector in St. Charles, waits 2 years. Most, but not all, Missouri counties wait 2 years. St. Louis County, and that's just based on the delinquency. I might need you soon, Chris, on the microphone. Anyway, so the taxes go unpaid. The collector's offers the lien for sale. Collectors have a lot of discretion. Thanks, Lloyd. Oh my. Okay, so if you decide to bid, then what happens? Turn it off. Thanks, Chris. The battery was dying on that one, I think, or I was holding it incorrectly or something. St. Louis County is using sealed bids again this year. We talked about that. Information and the forms are all on their website. If you sign up for my email list and send me an email, take my card, I'll send you a link to the instructions. But if you're smart enough to bid in this auction, you're smart enough to find the information. You have to fill out an affidavit that says you don't owe any taxes. In every county in Missouri, you have to be, except for the city of St. Louis, you have to be a resident of Missouri in order to bid, or you have to appoint a Missouri agent. So if your sister-in-law in Arkansas wants to bid on a property in St. Louis County, and you live in St. Louis County, you can be her agent. But she still has to swear that she doesn't owe any taxes. You have to pay the successful bid amount and the cost of recording the lien. Here's the general timeline. Now, I went through the general timeline for Crawford County a second ago, didn't I? I was only 1 year behind. 8 months later, Pat Schwent sold that sucker out from underneath me. And when she did, I had a right to redeem. We're going to get into that. And so in St. Louis County, which is what most people are interested in, right? Okay, the general timeline is going to be the taxes go unpaid for 3 years, 2021, 2022, and 2023. Next week, the government will offer the lien for sale for the first time. What does that mean? It's the tax bill for 2021, 2022, and 2023. Okay, is the opening bid amount. And then the bids go up from there. And so there are some parts of town, such as Chesterfield, fancy Florissant, where the bids are going to be high. And there are going to be other places where the bids are going to be low, or there aren't going to be any at all. If there are no bids at all, or if nobody pays their bid, the status quo remains for an exact year, meaning that the taxpayer can pay their taxes and keep their property. They can sell it, have the taxes satisfied out of closing. How many agents do we have here? Yeah, a couple. Any brokers? All right, I don't know who everybody is. Anyway, so then if the status quo remains for the next year, that's called a second sale. What happens in a second sale? Nothing different except that the amount went up. How come the amount went up? Oh, another year's taxes kicked in on December 31st of 2024, assuming we make it that far, right? Right? Okay, and a first and a second sale are functionally exactly the same and have the same rights and responsibilities and obligations flowing to the bidder and to the taxpayer and to the lien holder. The same time frames for redemption to occur. If, however, the property doesn't sell at the second sale, then we roll over status quo for another year. And now that sucker, that tax bill, it is so big, it is so delinquent, right? We're talking about 5 years of taxes. Oh my, how are we going to keep our schools in business? And so now at a third sale, the right to redeem shortens in time. We're going to have time to talk about this, I hope. John, will you let me know when I'm about to 8:30? Yeah. Anyway, so the right to redeem is going to go from 12 to 18 months to 90 to 135 days. Why? It's a tax collection strategy. Nobody's trying to take anybody's property away from him or her or it or them. It's simply a matter of collecting the taxes. If the taxes don't get paid and nobody buys it at the third sale, it goes on to a post-third list, or some Missouri collectors call it a subsequent to third list because they like to use a lot of words. And a post-third has no right to redeem, but it is constitutionally problematic. And if we have time, we'll get to all of that. St. Louis County waits 3 years, but as we discussed, St. Charles waits 2. Pat Schwent down in Steelville, if you're on the float trip, she's only going to wait 1 year of back taxes, and she's going to start proceeding against your property. So a right to redeem usually exists. The buyer handles due process. Remember, this is an administrative system handled over the counter in a government council chamber, not in a courtroom. No notice has gone to a lien holder or perhaps to a taxpayer prior to the auction. And so the law requires the bidder to engage in the state has delegated to the bidder, the lien holder now, due process of law. So you'll have to, on a first, second, or third sale in most Missouri counties, the bidder is expected to know the law and to order a title report from a licensed attorney or a licensed title company and send out notices by regular mail and certified mail to anybody who shows up in that title report at their last known available address. Those are all legal terms of art that I just used, and it gets very complicated in a hurry. One must monitor the returned mail and sometimes take additional reasonable steps, such as remailing to a different address, consulting a telephone directory. Does anybody remember what that is? Telephone directory? You got a phone book? Google is most people's phone book these days, right? And Google is useful for a lot of different purposes. It may also be reasonable to provide due process of law by giving notice, by posting a notice on a property or posting a notice to somebody. It might be reasonable to personally serve a taxpayer or a lien holder with papers. In any event, the buyer will have to pay additional year's taxes. So when are the taxes due? December 31st. The lady has it right. I wish I had some lottery tickets or some attendance prizes on me. But anyway, so if the auction is next week, what's gonna happen at the end of the year? More taxes kick in, right? And so the buyer, if the property hasn't been redeemed by that point, will be expected to pay those taxes and will not, in most Missouri counties, receive a bill for saying, you are simply supposed to do it. And there's no reason not to do it if redemption hasn't occurred. The reasons why will be that there's no reason not to. You have to pay them to get a deed next year. And it raises the bar for redemption to occur if what you want is the property and not the money back. All right, the buyer will get a collector's deed. A collector's deed is not a warranty deed, not a general warranty deed. It's not a special warranty deed. It's a wild deed coming out of the sky. Because generally, Kenny sells his property to Butters, right? Butters sells his property back to Kenny. Those are South Park characters, you know? Anyway, and there's gonna be two deeds for those transactions. There's gonna be a deed from Kenny to Butters and from Butters to Kenny. And then what if Butters doesn't pay his taxes because he dies? Or decides to retire to a golf course in Arizona and leave his property in Jennings behind? The collector of revenue comes out of the sky and deeds the property to Lloyd. That causes a problem for title examiners and causes a break in the chain of title. Therefore, a quiet title suit is almost always necessary. They can be messy and there's no guarantee. Now, you're buying a tax lien first and maybe real estate later, which means there's that period of redemption. The period during which redemption may occur on a first or second offering tax sale is 12 to 18 months, and you, the bidder, gets to decide whether it's 12 to 18 months. On a third offering tax sale, it's 90 to 135 days. Why is it that weird number? Because you're required to act within 45 days of the auction, no matter when they get around to mailing you a letter saying that you won. And then there's a 90-day right to redeem from the postmark date of the redemption notice. And in any event, during that time, you were a trespasser on that property. A trespasser. But Floreston will still mow your grass. Country Club Hills will still mow your grass and take away your dead deer. And bill you royally for the privilege of letting them do that. Okay, and they'll stick it on the tax bill. University City will still tear your house down during the redemption period and claim that it was a public nuisance and haul you into an administrative hearing on a loading dock where everybody has to wear masks and sit 8 feet apart. It's completely bizarre how some of this kinds of stuff work. In any event, you'll have to pay those additional year's taxes. Some expenses incurred by the bidder during the period of redemption, such as the cost of the title report, the cost of the stamps, are reimbursable should redemption occur. And 10% interest is paid, which is not bad, on the opening bid amount. 8% interest per annum on additional year's taxes. That's the ones that kick in at the end of the year, right? And no interest on the surplus. So let's do the math. I'm not very good at math because I went to law school. The opening bid amount is $10,000, right? I bid $20,000. At the end of 2024, another year's taxes kick in. That's $1,000. My total investment now is $21,000, right? Did I still figure that out? Okay, if redemption occurs, I get back 10% on my 10. I get back 8% on my 1. I don't get nothing on my other 10. Does that make sense? And so there's a great deal of algorithmic math that goes into the expert tax sale purchasers choice of offering on these properties. Because the thing is that the government can take away my property if I didn't pay my taxes, but the government isn't allowed to make a profit on it. Does that make sense? So the government can sell my property to Lloyd because I didn't pay my taxes, but the government can't make a profit on that. And so therefore, I, or my creditors, or my spouse because I don't pay my alimony, or my creditor because I didn't pay my car note, or John because he sued me, might be able to attach that little extra money. And so that, remember, it's a tax collection strategy, not a real estate marketing strategy. You don't get that collector's deed until you submit an affidavit to the collector of revenue in any Missouri county other than the city and Jackson County that outlines the steps that you took during that prior year. I got a title report, Mr. Collector, Ms. Collector. I sent out these notices. Here's pictures of my post office receipt. Here's a copy of my title report. Here's a copy of the invoice for that title report. I paid Freedom Title, whoever title, for that report. Here's a copy of every single envelope as it looked when it went out. Here's a copy of what was in the envelopes. Here's a copy of every envelope that came back to me. Here's what I thought about the mail that came back to me. Here's what I did about the mail that came back to me. This is due process of law, right? It's necessary before the government can take away somebody's property. Then you get a collector's deed that's never enough for title insurance. So you have to do one of two things to get good, valid, marketable, and merchantable title if you need that. I had a lady who called me the other day. She bought a vacant lot next door to her house on the post third list from St. Louis County. She lives in Hillsdale. And she bought the vacant lot next door to her house. She's going to move her fence out. She's going to put some tomato plants out there, and she's going to put a swing set out there for her grandchildren. And she said, Dale, I need you to get started with this quiet title yesterday. And I said, for the love of God, why? Are you moving? I mean, if you're planting tomatoes and you're buying a swing set, then who's worried? Who's coming for your vacant lot in Hillsdale, right? There's nobody coming out of the woodwork on that. Now, if you told me you're building a skyscraper, or you're going to consolidate your lots, or you're going to do whatever, this is the vagaries and the complications involved in real estate, and we don't have time for all of that tonight. We're here to talk about tax sales. There are constitutional problems, however, on a post third. So remember, a post third is the government tried to sell it 3 Augustuses in a row, right? And nobody bought it. And so it goes on the post third list. In St. Louis County, there's a couple thousand properties on that list. It's only updated about once a year, usually around Thanksgiving. And the list is obsolete the moment that they put it on their website. Why? Because somebody sold their property, somebody paid their taxes, somebody submitted an offer to buy something. Post thirds are constitutionally problematic because under Missouri law, there is no due process, there is no right to redeem. You just get the property, you're buying the property to not lien. Oh, but nobody told the lien holders. So while a post third sale may be constitutional and constitutionally viable as to a taxpayer, because we're charged, did somebody send me a notice that said I had to file a 1040 by April 15th this year? Did you guys get that notice? We're just supposed to know. And so the government does send out tax bills, whether it must or not, on real estate taxes. So the point here is that nobody on a post third had sent any notice to any lien holders or creditors, which can be problematic. You got time for a story? I had a weekend warrior lady And normally there's client confidentiality, I can't spill my guts, blah, blah, blah. But she talked to the press and she ended up on the front page of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, sitting on her porch in unincorporated North St. Louis County, all right? So that's the end of client attorney confidentiality, to the extent that she told that to the Post-Dispatch, right? And Amy, are you here? Anyway, so I had a weekend warrior lady, you know, she went to a few RVIA meetings, she went to some other real estate clubs. She's a single mom, she's got some handy boys, she's got a handy niece, she's got a dad, she's got a mom. She buys a house off of St. Louis County's post-third list. All right, it's an unincorporated St. Louis County, cute little ranch house, not too bad, except that the people who were living there didn't pay their trash bill and they were burying their garbage in the backyard. They had a landfill in the backyard, okay? And it was actually in very poor condition. So she completely rehabbed it. She had all the LVP and the quartzite, and it was all set up, ready to go. All of the LED lights that look like a prison break, you know, she was set up. She was at the top of her game. And she listed the property for sale. Title company said, "Oh, are you kidding me?" And so she called me and she said, "Hey, can you get a title report on this?" Or "I got this commitment," or whatever, and look it up. And I look at it and I say, "Uh-oh, you got a lien on there. You got an unpaid mortgage. There's a note, there's a deed of trust, there's an assignment of the deed of trust." Who is the assignment of the deed of trust to? A woman in Rancho Cucamonga, California. Okay, Rancho Cucamonga. She paid $30,000 to go to a Get Rich Quick seminar. Now, nobody from the REIA would do that, would they? Because we're smarter. So this lady, Lynn from Rancho Cucamonga, she goes to the seminar in Vegas for $30,000 for a weekend. And somebody there sold her a non-performing note on a property in Kansas City, a property in Detroit, and Amy's house with the buried trash. She never checks to see if it's occupied. She never checks to see if the taxes are paid. She never asks for a lease. She never asks for a tenant roster. And she keeps getting a little bit of money every month, just like the deal, right? Why? Because it's a Ponzi scheme. Okay? And so anyway, so Amy, that's my client, she's a weekend warrior. She worked her butt off with her family, had it completely fantastic. Judge said Amy would have lost if Lynn got on a plane from California and came here. If Lynn got on a plane from California and came to Clayton, Missouri, and showed up in division, whoever, and testified about lack of notice and amount due on note, she would have won, and she would have still had a viable note on that property. So now let's go back to one of my earlier slides, because I know this is really complicated, folks. It is now possible in 8 days, after August 28th of this year, to proceed on a post-third as if it is a third, which makes a post-third more likely to be constitutional. Pitfalls, there are lots of them. We've talked about tricky municipalities and HOAs and condos. Sewer bills, we've talked about. Federal liens, we've talked about. What am I actually buying? What is 5980R, Astra? What is 10136 Cloverdale, etc.? Risk of loss and insurability during the tax sale. What if I bid on the wrong property and didn't pay? Can they prosecute me? Can Wesley Bell, if he's not, you know, ascended to the United States House of Representatives by that time, can he prosecute me for not paying? Yes. How about relations with occupants? So for instance, people ask me all the time, well, I had a lady, she bought a little house in Limay, and she said, I need you to evict these people. I bought it for back taxes and now I own it. You need to evict them. I said, have you talked to them? And she said, no, it's the right thing to do. I said, okay, if you say so. And anyway, and then she got her doors stolen, her cyclone fence stolen, her furnace stolen, and a whole bunch of damage to her property because of the right thing to do. I think that the right thing to do is the humanitarian thing that is also practical for the investor. And that is talk to people, show up on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock with a tray of brownies and a bunch of smoke detectors and 9-volt batteries and a clipboard and a camera and a business card and introduce yourself and say, hi, I'm so-and-so, who are you? Is now a good time? I'd like to come in and check the smoke detectors. I happen to be the new owner of this property. Provide documentation, right? And do you rent here? Are you the owner? Are you the owner's grandson? Who might you be? Can we, does your hot water work? Can I bring over a new hot water tank? Do you need a lease? I need to rehab this place completely. I'm gonna put on 3 more floors. So I'm gonna need you out in order to do that. Can I help you provide, can I provide you with relocation assistance? Humanitarian and practical. Moving along, you inherit, this is a tax collection strategy. There's no seller's disclosure statement, okay? So you inherit building code violations, demolitions, easements. So if, for instance, University City was planning on demolishing your property in September and you buy it from the county collector of revenue in August, then University City Public Schools, thank you. Does that make sense? They got the taxes. What was it about? The taxes. Yeah, so quiet title. I'm gonna have to start moving soon, pretty quickly, am I not, John? I can't read that, just say it.
18 minutes.
Okay, good, we're good. So anyway, a quiet title is a separate lawsuit. That's the one that the lady in Hillsdale didn't really need for her tomato plant. Remember? Okay, but a quiet title is a separate lawsuit. A quiet title, why is it called quiet? I have no idea. I think it's because people are squabbling and they need to be told who to shut up. And anyway, so who are your defendants in a quiet title? They are generally going to be your delinquent taxpayer. So I had a case going back to our friends in Crawford County. I had some undeveloped rural land. It was owned by Nancy Richardson beginning in 1970 something or other, okay? Nancy Richardson stopped paying her taxes. My client bought it, waited out the redemption period, sent out notices, posted the property, did everything they were supposed to do, got a deed to the property. Do they have good, valid, marketable, and merchantable title? No, they have to do something else. So now, if they could find Nancy Richardson, could they give her an Olive Garden gift card to sign a quitclaim deed? Would that save them a lawsuit? If Nancy was the only person on the title report, right? What's that? And a lot of time. So the gentleman said that not only would that save legal fees and court costs and process servers looking for Nancy, it would also save a lot of time. The gentleman is exactly right. Well, so Nancy Richardson, turns out there's at least 3 of them nearby in Missouri. One's in Chesterfield, one's in Union, one's in Bourbon, okay? How do I know which Nancy Richardson it is? I sue them all. Let God sort them out. And so anyway, so we sued them all, and Nancy Richardson in Chesterfield called me, and she says, "You're a terrible person. You were horrible, and I'm sure your mother is ashamed of you, and you lawyers, and like, and anyway." And then I said, "I mean, is your name Nancy Richardson? Have you ever been confused with another Nancy Richardson? You sound like a mature woman." And she said, "Yeah, you're telling me. I once had a secretary named Nancy Richardson." Nancy Richardson's secretary also happened to be Nancy Richardson. But she thinks it's weird that I'm suing her because her name is Nancy Richardson? You follow me? I mean, anyway, and then and I said, well, that must have been really confusing. People calling your office saying, could I talk to Nancy Richardson? Well, this is Nancy Richardson. Now I need the other Nancy Richardson. Well, she's unavailable right now. I'm Nancy Richardson. Can I help you? And anyway, and she said, well, yeah, it was really confusing, but I had to let her go because she wasn't very good. Anyway, the statutes could be clearer on a quiet title. The case law is all over the place. Sir. I sued, the secretary? But I think she had gotten married or divorced by that time, because that's another problem. People change names, you know, and what we're gonna have somebody in our little cast of characters here in a second. Ron Jackson. See Ron Jackson? He got his head cut off. So Ron Jackson here, Ron Jackson is a disabled, incapacitated, active duty service member who is also a minor child. He is dead. He never existed. He has unpaid sewer bills, and he might be a junior, he might be a senior, he might be a third, he might be a fourth, he might be Ronnie, he might be Ronald, he might be Ron, he might have a different middle initial than his dad. He might have transitioned and may now be Ronette. Okay? I mean, so if Ron Jackson loses his property, that's kind of like Nancy Richardson losing her property, isn't it? But it's even worse. I have one right now that I just filed in Wellston. The delinquent taxpayer's name was William Spencer. Well, how many Bill Spencers do you think there are? How about William? William J, William P, Willie Jr., WJ, BJ. You follow me? It gets real hard, but no, I didn't sue the secretary. I think she got married and changed her name. We're not sure. But anyway, he also has a federal judgment against him and didn't pay his car note. And so for that reason, some people's strategy in buying tax sale property is not to buy property that's owned by somebody with a common name, and rather to buy property that's owned by an entity, an organization, an LLC, et cetera, et cetera. Another person in the cast of characters who's also very prominent is Tammy. Tammy works at the title company. Everybody knows Tammy, sir. The question is, can you always figure it out? No, we have to do a 110% job. And even if we do a 110% job, can somebody blame us? They will. Who is going to blame us? Tammy. Tammy is going to tell my client that I'm the biggest idiot that's ever popped up on the planet, and I have robbed them. Okay, and she's going to say it with such glee in Tempest Sans and Comic Sans, and she's going to have a pink background in her emails. You follow? Everybody knows Tammy. And she's going to pop up 6 months or 6 years from now when my client in the quiet title now wants to borrow against her property or sell it to someone who needs a loan to pay her purchase price. Okay, Tammy is going to pop up. She works at the title company, and she is very important. But today we have absolutely no idea what her qualifications are or what her requirements are going to be. But they are going to be very stringent, and they are going to prove me to be a complete idiot. The next person in the cast of characters in the quiet title is the dumb lender. The dumb lender lives in California, and her name is Lynn, and she lives in Rancho Cucamonga. Now, anyway, the dumb lender might be First Franklin. Is First Franklin? Is it National City? Is it now PNC? Did they sell to Merrill? Is that part of Bank of America? You follow me so far? Very difficult to figure out who dumb lender is. Dumb lender has absolutely no idea what their assets are. Charged that off, wrote that off. That wasn't even on the last spreadsheet that exchanged hands on a non-recourse sale from one entity to another, or an FDIC receivership or anything else. They have absolutely no idea what assets they might have in Jennings, and they aren't much, I'll tell you that. And they might have assigned their rights to someone and not even have recorded that assignment. So I might have absolutely no idea that Lynn bought the note, right? Horrible. And so we also have a problem with IRAs and custodians. People go to these get rich quick seminars. Quest, we were talking about that earlier. Somebody mentioned equity trust. We know all about these people. And sometimes the mail goes there. Does it actually go to the IRA beneficiary, or does it go to the custodian? What does the Constitution require? I've looked at the Fifth Amendment. I can't seem to find it. So dumb lender, big problem. When do you need help if you buy property at a tax sale from me or a colleague such as Roger Wallach or another esteemed practitioner of the bar? Immediately, if you get a third. Pay the taxes at the end of the year if redemption doesn't occur, if you get a first or a second, sir. Post third, you probably need help immediately unless you're just gonna plant a tomato plant. Didn't we cover that? You just want a swing set? What's your big hurry? Okay, I'm busy, right? And anyway, next spring, if you get a first or a second, because there is at least a 1 year right to redeem on a first or a second in most Missouri counties, right? I have YouTube videos on all these subjects. I'm an attorney. I'm probably not your attorney. Maybe I could be, maybe I was. I don't know. I hope I did an okay job. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision. My phone number, I live and I work in the city of St. Louis, but I have a 636 number because it spells something, and it spells tax sale. And it's on my cards. They're back there by John Lee in the back. You're welcome to pick one up. I have some more in my shirt pocket. And I have a little website. I have some videos on YouTube. I have a free email list that you're absolutely welcome to join. And you can do that by simply sending me an email, going on my website, or signing up on that clipboard that was going around. That guy back there with the STL hat, no, he doesn't have it. He has his own portfolio. Who has the clipboard? All right, John's got it. So anyway, that probably leaves us with about 11 minutes, John? 8. Okay, I got 8 minutes. Who's first? Not a single question? Yes.
Sample of the wouldn't it be right to get the thing taken care of in case you want to sell the house and not see the fence around that area, think that's that property being sold with the house?
The gentleman's question is, why are you trying to turn away business? And I mean, that's a good question, right? I mean, why don't you have your hand out, Dale? And his question is, the lady with the vacant lot in Hillsdale who bought the vacant lot, she's got some grandkids, they're gonna be on the swing set, she wants a vegetable garden, she's gonna move her fence out a little bit. Why are we trying to discourage her from filing a quiet title? Well, we're not. I mean, if that's what she wants to do, that's fine. We can get a title report. We can figure out that it's Ron Jackson and Nancy Richardson. They were married, then they were divorced, and they married again. Remember those people? And we can send somebody out to give them Olive Garden gift cards and notarize their signatures on a quick claim deed, or we can sue the hell out of them. But the reality is, this lady's going to be in her house for a while, right? And when it comes time to sell her house, she could simply quit claim that vacant lot along with the house, right? She doesn't have to. She absolutely can. I mean, I could go home right now and polish my silver and my shoes. You know what I mean? I'm probably not going to. I'll probably eat dinner and go to bed, walk the dog or something. So, it's just a matter of priorities. If the shingles are more important, I talked to a guy today and he said, I just bought this, I need to know what the next steps are. And I said, well, you can do, I said, well, what are your resources like? What are your plans like? He said, well, I'm gonna move in there. I said, how long are you gonna be there? He said, for X number of whoever's. And I said, do you need a roof? Do you need a new garage door? Or do you need legal work? I'll do the legal work. You know, it's just a matter, I mean, we all have priorities and we all have resources and sometimes they're limited and so on. Thanks for the great question. Go ahead.
I don't get involved with tax sales. I think it's very interesting.
Good. Smartest guy in the room.
I am involved with real estate quite a bit, but my question is, and this might be an unfair question. In St. Louis County, in the last year or two, how many properties are we talking about? Would you say that people are buying the back taxes on? We're talking 50, 100, 500?
The gentleman's question is, what kind of volume are we seeing pass through a tax sale in St. Louis County, Missouri specifically? That's the right question, right?
Yes.
And the answer is it depends on the year, naturally, and some of this is ebbs and flows with the market and all that kind of stuff. And the answer is hundreds and thousands.
It varies from 100 to 1,000.
It varies from hundreds to low numbers of thousands, like 2,000. Okay,
2,000.
and then the next question that people ask me is, what's the likelihood that redemption is gonna occur?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you that. Go
Right,
ahead.
so what's the likelihood that redemption is gonna occur? I say, what the hell is it? I mean, you know, if you're dealing with a mansion in Chesterfield with a living owner who is rational, the rate of redemption is 100%. Because even if they can't afford, they're gonna sell, right? If you're dealing with a vacant lot in Hillsdale, the rate of redemption is about 8%. Okay, so it depends on what you're buying. But I mean, in St. Louis County, there is actually, one of the reasons that I got interested in this is based on neighborhood advocacy and volunteerism and so on. And I noticed a correlation. This is long before I went to law school or anything like that, or had this belly or, you know, whatever. And the answer was, there's a connection between deterioration, blight, and unpaid taxes. And that may or may not be visible in, you know, the Hazel Crest Condominium Association, right? It is more visible in other parts of town. Specifically North St. Louis County and North St. Louis City, to tell you the truth. And certain parts of Afton, Lee May, and so on, right? We're seeing a lot of that these days. But lake lots in rural areas in Camden County and so on, Stone County, they actually are also suffering for the same kind of disinvestment and blight as places such as Hillsdale. And so on. It's kind of fascinating. Did I do okay with your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. We got another one over there. Can you roll the mic over?
All right, so talking about tax sales, or tax bids, somebody overbids because they want to right? So for instance, an example is taxes due are 50,000, they bid up 100,000. If somebody redeems their taxes, does the successful bidder, get their full 100,000 back, even though they're only getting interest on the opening bid?
The participant attendee's question is, how does redemption work? We got into some of that earlier, but I failed in adequately addressing that earlier. In the lady's example, the opening bid was $50,000. The successful bidder bid $100,000. Redemption did occur. Let's pretend redemption occurred before 12/31 of 2024, right? So we don't have to deal with the math on an additional year's taxes. That tax sale bidder who bid next week gets back 50 plus 10% on the 50 and gets back 50 with no interest. And the taxpayer who is successful at cleansing her property of sin, right? That person merely needs to pay the 50 plus the 10%. The 50 was held in escrow for her if she couldn't come up with the 50 plus the 10 and you got it. Does everybody get that math? And thanks for making the numbers easy, because I have a hard time with numbers, yeah. Yep. The question is some kind of apocalyptic dystopian thing. I don't know what the question was. Now, the question is somebody paid 100 and there's the 50 plus the 50, then they paid the taxes, then they got a deed, but somehow the judge died and everybody died and everybody's named Nancy Richardson and they just got divorced from Ron Jackson and the judge decides that it's theirs subject to $1 million lien in favor of the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District. Are they screwed? Yes. Next question. Restating the question, are there circumstances where the tax sale purchaser might be able to claim the surplus? Say it again then.
The question was, is there times when you just can't get the point
Are there times when a quiet title isn't successful? Yes, Lynn gets on a plane from Rancho Cucamonga. Next question.
You might not answer it.
Yeah.
I can talk pretty loud. Oh, that's right.
You might not answer this, but me and him my buddy wanna get a clear understanding. So on that 50,000 that she was using, if you overbid the opening bid for another 50, which is 100,000, and you end up getting it, you just gave the county or whoever that extra 50, because you're not gonna get that back. I mean, obviously you bidded it, so they just take that and give it to the libraries and the schools and everybody. Well, that's a way that the bidder like myself got a way of coming to get all that extra money out there.
Good question. So I'm going to restate the question. What happens to the surplus? So the gentleman with the gas company said the opening bid was $50,000. He bid $100,000, and redemption didn't occur. The quiet title was just perfect. Now there's the vinyl plank is everywhere. It's absolutely beautiful. They have light fixtures that don't have any shades anywhere, and it's gorgeous. Okay. And the garage has been turned into several more bedrooms, and we get the idea. Now, what happens to the 50, right? What happens to the 50 surplus? That's your question? And the answer to that question is contained in statute 14230 of the revised statutes of the state of Missouri. And it goes to the person entitled to it. So the government, it's a tax collection strategy, folks, right? Not a real estate marketing strategy. The government can take away my property and sell it to you for back taxes to pay my tax bill because I wouldn't pay it because I was dead or a deadbeat or something, okay? And they can sell it to you, but the government isn't allowed to make a profit off of it, okay? So the persons who were entitled to claim that money may come forward and claim it. They would be me. They would be my granddaughter because I'm dead. They would be my creditor, Citibank, because I didn't pay my mortgage and Citibank decided not to foreclose on me, right? And if nobody claimed it, I think this is the ultimate answer to your question, right? Then we have to look at the book of Revelation. Now, actually, we only look at the statute. It goes to the school fund of the county. So everything ends up coming back to Riverview Gardens, to Pattonville, to whoever, right? What is this about? It's about what the taxes pay for. So we sold Dale's property out from under it. We sold to you. You paid a premium for it. Nobody lined up to get that money. Where does the money go? Eventually to the schools. I think we're probably out of time, John, aren't we? Yeah, did I answer your question okay? Okay, it's been an absolute pleasure being with you all here tonight. I have some pens and some business cards and a little sign-up sheet. I'm not selling anything, I don't have any get rich quick or anything else. I really appreciate everybody from STLREIA having me here tonight. Also major shout out to Chris on tech and all those dialing in from home on Zoom and the YouTube's. Good night and God bless. I'll be here all week.
Hey, thank you, Dale. Another announcement I forgot to make, if you, also at the table up here where we're gonna take a picture of the registration for the tax sale seminar next June is a handout. In case you missed Kathy Davis's presentation a couple months ago, we had extra handouts, so if you missed that one, if you get it, they're up here on the table too. Hope you all had a good time. We got here till 9 o'clock. Go ahead and do some more networking. See you back here next month. Thank you.